It was a total disaster for these Trump cabinet members during hearings before the United States Senate and the House of Representatives today. Watching cabinet members like Howard Lutnik and Linda McMahon crumble was a sight to behold. Even when MAGA Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana was asking a pretty softball question to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnik about what would you do if Vietnam removed every single trade barrier? Would that be a good enough deal for you? And Howard Lutnik's like, no, that wouldn't. And even the MAGA Republican senator's like, so what are you trying to do here? What do you mean by reciprocal? What's your plan? Watch this.
If Vietnam, for example, came to you tomorrow and said, okay, Mr. Secretary, you win. We're going to remove all tariffs and all trade barriers. Would the United States please do the same? Would you accept that deal?
Absolutely not. Okay. Absolutely not. That would be the silliest thing we could do.
Why is that?
Vietnam has a $125 billion exports to us and imports from us $12.5 million. And you're thinking, Vietnam exports $125 billion?
I'm aware of the figures, but tell me.
But where do they get it from? They buy $90 billion from China, then they mark it up and send it to us.
So they're
just a pathway of China to us.
You wouldn't accept that deal?
No, it's a terrible deal. We're the one with money. We're the one with the store. Of course they want us to take down.
What's the purpose of reciprocity then? Is reciprocity not one of your goals? Are you telling the president that we shouldn't seek reciprocity? If that's what you're telling him, why are you trying to do these trade deals?
What do we want? We want to encourage Vietnam to produce products they're great at producing.
But I want to get back to reciprocity. You just said you don't believe in it. You don't accept reciprocity as a goal. What are you negotiating in these trade deals?
Why would we open our bank account and their bank account?
Why are you negotiating trade deals? You're trying to get other countries to lower their tariffs and trade barriers in return for us lowering ours.
That's true for the things that they'll take from us.
That's called reciprocity.
Of course.
So are you or are you not seeking reciprocity in these trade deals?
We are absolutely seeking reciprocity with respect to things that can be reciprocal.
But you just said,
but when they're importing from China and sending it to us, they're not. You just said
that if a country came to you and offered you the ultimate reciprocity, no tariffs, no trade barriers, in return for us doing the same, you would reject that.
Of course, because they buy from China and send it to us. Don't you agree with me?
Suppose they said we won't buy from China.
Now we're talking. If it was Vietnam,
would you accept that deal?
We would consider it. For what things? For
what
products?
Would you want to change?
Well, there are certain products we want to reshore. We don't want other people making them. We want to make pharmaceuticals here. Right. We need to protect ourselves.
Next up, Howard Lutnik is asked about whether or not he would commit to not terminating important weather forecasting services and other aspects of the NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency, which also houses the NWS, the National Weather Service. He refuses to answer the question. Play this clip.
Will you commit to me that the forecasting office in Marquette, Michigan will not cease its round-the-clock operation? Yes or no would be great.
You don't understand it yet because no one's explained it to you. These are hard drive computers, literally, that no one has seen in 25 years with green screens in these offices. They should be on a cloud. Our 2,000 meteorologists should be able to watch them round the clock. The concept that we're talking about, a green screen and a hard drive.
So the answer is no, you're saying?
No, we were going to modernize it. We are going to staff those offices. I can commit that we're going to staff those offices, but I will commit to you that the next time you see me, the concept of having 3 people at some regional office will be laughable because our 2,000 meteorologists and our hundreds of hydrologists will be able to stay and forecast and protect us in a modern way instead of these green screens and hard drives. And it's hard-coded and it's absurd.
Okay, so a no answer. One of Congress's
Howard Lutnik, Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary, is next asked about these tariffs that the Trump regime just imposed on steel and aluminum, 25 to 50% tariffs. And the senator asking the question says, you realize that a lot of manufacturing in the United States relies on importing foreign steel and aluminum, even if the whole product isn't really made of steel. It's a component part that's needed in our supply chain, and you are harming American corporations and our national security by companies not getting aluminum and steel. Here, play this clip. Watch Lutnik's response.
I'm just going to tell you what this company in New Hampshire has told me, and that is that their lead times have gone from 20 weeks to 2.5 years. And at that rate, it's hard for me to understand how we can continue to support our defense industry when we don't have the ability to get the supply chain that they need to operate.
The big issue is you can't fight a war without steel and aluminum production in America. You have to be able to make it. If you don't have the ability to make your own steel and aluminum, you can't fight a war. And that is what the president's doing. He's trying to make sure that we make sufficient steel and aluminum to protect our defense industry.
Which I certainly support. I'm
saying.
Sure all of us support.
Sounds like we exactly agree.
But I don't agree on the way it's being done, because we're not going to have the steel that we need immediately to provide the supplies that we need immediately. So we need to do a little better planning before we put in place those kinds of tariffs. But
So next up, Senator Reid goes on and continues on this line of questioning about the NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency. And he asks Howard Lutnik, you're destroying the NOAA. And then Howard Lutnik acts like this is some sort of like sick joke. He's like, oh, what? Yeah, we cut some programs about children's books on climate anxiety. Ha, ha, ha. No, you cut programs that put weather balloons in the sky. I did a report that will be airing sometime in the next day or two about this guy, John Morales, the meteorologist in South Florida, who says he doesn't have the tools to forecast hurricanes the way he used to anymore. And it's hurricane season. You have the new head of FEMA who's never worked a day in life in FEMA or in like emergency management before, say he didn't even know it was hurricane season, and says that he doesn't know what hurricane season is. And then he said it's a joke. Like he does jokes about not knowing hurricane season. Here, play this clip of Lutnik.
Research so that we understand changing oceans, etc. And this cut, as described by Craig McLean, who served as NOAA's top scientist during the first Trump administration, has said in his quote, the proposal to slash NOAA funding by nearly 30% would take us back to the 1950s in terms of our scientific footing and the American people. And I'm echoing what's said by many other people. You're going to destroy NOAA. Well, that's consistent.
Under no circumstances. We have 2,100 meteorologists and 120 retired this year, and we hired them back. I was able to have them exempted from the hiring freeze. We care about meteorologists. We care about hydrologists who do the rivers and the ponds. So we are fully staffed with forecasters and scientists. Under no circumstances am I going to let public safety or public forecasting be touched. But I tell you what we did cut. We did cut programs writing children's books for climate anxiety. Yes, that was in NOAA. And you agree with me, that's not part of our mission. Our mission is to forecast. Our mission is to protect. Our mission is to advise. Our mission is to research, not write children's books on climate anxiety.
How much money did you save there?
We saved tens of millions of dollars
on
nonsense out of NOAA. Nonsense out of NOAA.
Then you have MAGA Mike Johnson. I'm going to do another video just on MAGA Mike Johnson today. But here he says that Elon Musk is now ghosting him and not taking his phone calls after Elon Musk says that the budget bill is a total disaster. Here's Musk ghosting MAGA Mike. Play this clip.
You mentioned that you talked to Elon on Monday, made this 180. What do you think changed? Why do you think he's coming out against this now? And have you spoken to the president and Elon since the infamous tweet?
Well, I'll tell you, I called Elon last night and he didn't answer, but I hope to talk to him today. I mean, it's not, it's very friendly and we've laughed about our differences on policy before.
Congresswoman Lee is questioning education secretary, one of Trump's cabinet members, billionaire Linda McMahon. And Linda McMahon says, this is what she said. Linda McMahon goes, I don't have an issue if African studies is taught as long as we give both sides of the issue. To which Congressmember Lee goes, what both sides of African American history are you talking about? Play this clip.
Secretary McMahon, during your confirmation hearing, you were asked by Senator Chris Murphy if an African American history class violated the administration's position on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You said you'd like to look into it. You've been on the job for a few months now. Have you been able to look into it?
I do not think that African studies or Middle East studies or Chinese studies are part of DEI if they are taught as part of the total history package. So that if you're giving the facts on both sides, of course they're not DEI.
I don't know what both sides of African American history would be.
Well, if African American history is part of
certainly,
history,
but what we recognize throughout
what
we recognize throughout education is that a course is only 1 year or one semester. It would be impossible to teach African history and say European history at the same time. Do you not agree that it makes sense that there would be separate courses for these courses of study? It has happened throughout history. We're able to do it not just in history courses. We're able to do it with different types of literature courses or different types of music courses. One wouldn't learn about Baroque music and necessarily have to also learn about African drumming at the same time, right? We can separate those courses.
Yes, we can. I think just as we teach U.S. history as a separate course.
Certainly. So you do not agree. So you do agree that African American cultures and African history should not be eliminated from courses, particularly AP African history.
Well, I think that African history can certainly be taught and not be considered a DEI course.
Further questioning here of Education Secretary, or I should say Uneducation Secretary, Linda McMahon, since her goal is to destroy the Department of Education. She's asked by Congresswoman Lee, so do you believe that social studies standards that teach that Biden won the 2020 election, is that DEI to say Biden won in 2020? And then she goes, we need to hear all sides, is the response by Linda McMahon. Play this clip.
How about social studies standards that teach that President Biden won the 2020 election?
I think our studies should all be taught accurately.
Yes or no?
I think our studies should
No. The question was, do you believe that social studies standards that teach that President Biden won the 2020 election is an illegal DEI? Yes or no?
I think I have said we should teach accurately. We should.
No, you have not answered the question.
Well,
I don't understand why you're incapable of answering.
I'm just not giving you the answer you want.
No, I want the answer, whatever your answer is.
I just gave you the answer.
No, the answer is yes or no.
No, the answer is
the answer is yes or no.
Gentleladies,
thank you so much. I yield back.
Expired.
Next up, Congressmember Takano asks, so what are the limits of this viewpoint diversity that you're trying to enforce? So will Harvard, based on what you want, does Harvard need to hire faculty that will teach students that the 2020 election is stolen? And it seems that's exactly what their goal is, to have Harvard professors teach that the election was stolen. Play this clip.
Now, Madam Secretary, what are the limits of this viewpoint diversity that the administration is trying to enforce? Under these demands, for example, would the Harvard government department be compelled to hire faculty that believe the 2020 election was stolen?
I believe that there are rights to freedom of speech, and that on campuses and universities of colleges and universities across the country, freedom of speech should be allowed. There should be open debate. There should be different viewpoints.
But I'm not asking you a question about freedom of speech here, Madam Secretary. I'm asking you about the limits of viewpoint diversity cited in this letter. You demand that Harvard would be compelled to hire faculty. I mean, well, you're saying that there has to be viewpoint diversity. I'm just asking you, would the government department be compelled to hire faculty that believe the 2020 election was stolen? As an example of viewpoint diversity.
However, one of the things that Harvard Crimson, and by its
okay,
own
I think you don't really have an answer, so I'm going to move on to other questions. Maybe we can clarify by other questions. Would viewpoint diversity mean that, for example, Madam Secretary, reclaiming my time, Madam Secretary, Different Secretary, would the Harvard Medical School, who is looking to hire an immunologist, would that person need to adhere to HHS Secretary Kennedy's view on the efficacy of vaccines?
Listen, we all know that we should have our universities look at what all the
I
programs
don't think
are.
you
and
really
the
thought through this viewpoint,
ideology-
this
the political
viewpoint diversity
ideology
issue.
that you're trying to put forth is a false narrative.
Okay,
And the funding is a privilege.
Madam Secretary,
It's not a
recall
right.
reclaim my time.
Next up, you have Congress member Courtney questioning Linda McMahon on her removing all funding for magnet schools. And Linda McMahon goes, I think magnet schools are great. And then Congress member Courtney's like, yeah, but you defunded it all. Watch this clip.
But what your budget does is it undercuts parental choice because magnet schools are choice-driven programs. I can say that personally because my daughter attended a magnet school, and it was an excellent education experience. You zeroed out that account, which is completely undercuts and contradicts the hype in your opening statement about supporting parental choice. I mean, why wouldn't you support magnet schools?
Well, I do support magnet schools. And as we both know, in Connecticut, I'll speak to magnet schools, but also in Connecticut, there has been the lowest growth in charter schools. I think we're like fifth from the bottom in the country for allowing more charter school growth.
So why zero out magnets?
Magnet schools are also, as are charter schools, they are public schools. So in the public schools funding, then I think that as the states have more control over their state budgets, they can allocate those dollars to magnet schools. I think magnet schools are great. And I know that a lot of them do focus on particular kinds of
thank
studies.
you. I just reclaim my talk is cheap. Budgets are what count. And,
Yes,
and
but
this budget does not say that magnet
you
schools are
referenced,
great. I have another question.
Well,
I
you
want to just
referenced
move
the
on.
skinny budget, and that was an operating plan. We now have the full budget, so we might take another look at that.
Yeah,
You
it
may
says
still-
zero.
You may still be. You may still
Anyway,
be
just
correct,
I want
but
to
I'll be
move
happy
on
to get back to you.
I want to move on to the Perkins.
Another, I think, great line of questioning for Congress member Takano. By the way, he also chairs the Veteran Affairs Committee. And he asks, do you believe that the federal government is legally permitted to punish a private entity for having a different viewpoint than the administration? And Linda McMahon filibusters and refuses to answer the question. Play this clip.
Madam Secretary, good to see you again. Let's get right to it. Madam Secretary, do you believe that the federal government is legally or constitutionally permitted to punish a private entity for having a different viewpoint than the administration?
What do you mean by that?
Well, does the government have the power, or legally, or is it legal or constitutional for you, the Secretary, to punish a private entity for having a different viewpoint than the administration?
I don't know what you mean by punish. Can you be more specific?
Well, let's move on. Apparently, I don't want to get into this back and forth on this.
Like, we all realize that this is just straight up authoritarianism and fascism. The government telling private entities that they need to teach that the 2020 election was rigged? Are you kidding me? That's what this is all about. Next up, you have Congresswoman Lee once again saying, okay, let's flesh out your ideas here, your both sides to African American history concept. Okay. Is it illegal DEI for a lesson plan on the Tulsa race massacre? And Linda McMahon goes, I don't know. Play this clip.
That I would like your thoughts on, simple yes or no. If this is a legal DEI, an example, would you say that it would be an illegal DEI for a lesson plan on the Tulsa race massacre?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Do you know what the Tulsa race massacre is?
I'd like to look into it more and get back to you on it.
Okay, so I look forward to that. How about the book Through My Eyes by Ruby Bridges, for instance?
I haven't read that.
Have you learned about Ruby Bridges?
If you have specific examples you'd like
That
to
was a
cite,
specific example.
I'll be very happy.
It was
for
an
you-
incredibly
for
specific
you to
example.
submit
I named
those
a
in your
specific book.
questions, and I will look into it and get back to you on
Thank
them. I
you.
look
How
forward
about
to
a
answering them
school
directly.
having a voluntary celebration for Pride Month?
Well, I think that
Voluntary.
well, let's make sure that in our schools
This is yes or no?
that we're looking. No, it's not.
Okay.
Next up, you have Congress member McBath on this, I think, powerful line of questioning saying, you realize that on February 10th, Linda McMahon, you canceled a program that served 1,600 disabled students without warning. You threw disabled students under the bus. Play this clip.
Over the cancellation of grants and contracts at the Department of Education. On February 10th, you canceled the Charting My Path for Student Success program that served over 1,600 disabled students and their families across 62 schools in 11 states, including Paulding County, which is in my home state of Georgia. This year-round program provided support services and frequent small group sessions to ensure that physically disabled students or students with dyslexia, autism, and other disabilities, as well as their families, can meet their goals of transitioning to and succeeding in adulthood, which is really what every parent wishes for their child. All too often, it's unfortunately a sink or swim situation for disabled students after high school, and programs like this can be the difference between a lifetime on disability insurance versus a good job that they can raise a family on. On this poster right here, you can see the exact email that was sent out to parents in Georgia because of your decision, which I would like to submit digitally for the record. It says the federal funding provided by the Department of Education for this initiative has been discontinued immediately and that your child will no longer receive transition supports. I would like to also submit for the record an article from NPR about a young man named Logan and his mother, Jessie, who were really benefiting from this program before it was abruptly canceled. Secretary, this is just simply a yes or no answer. Do you stand by your decision to cancel this program in the middle of the school year without any warning to the hundreds of students, teachers, and families that were participating?
Well, I would like to explore that more.
Secretary, this is a yes or no answer.
No, it's not a yes or no answer.
Yes, it is. And the American people deserve
I'm not going to give you a yes or no answer because
full answer from you, yes or no. I'm not going to let you circumvent. I'm not going to let you ignore it. Yes or no. It's a simple question.
Well, I'll have to
stand
look
by
into
this
some
decision
of the different programs, and I can't speak to individual grant programs without looking into them exactly. There are a lot of grant programs out there, so I'd like to get back to you.
Note for the record that the secretary is unwilling to answer my question.
So that's what went down today at the congressional hearings before the Senate and in the House of Representatives. That first clip I shared with you of Howard Lutnik basically saying that he would not do a deal even if a country removed all of their tariffs, and that if there was a deficit, then the United States would still have to retaliate against a country like Vietnam. That's one of the most telling clips, I think, out there, and why you can't do a deal with these people, because they're operating in a bad faith world, a delusional world, and a dangerous world. It's absolutely outrageous. Tell me what you think in the comments. I want to hear from you. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.